Fill your thirst beside the river. Wash the journey from your hands. Feel the comfort flow inside you. Come this far, you want.
Hi, welcome to Healing Outside the Box. I'm Rosemary Lachance, an energy healer and spiritual teacher.
Hi, and I'm Dina Scungio, a student and teacher of spirituality.
And we are co-hosts for this thought-provoking series and are dedicated to providing you with food for thought information and answers to all modalities of alternative healing, spiritual development, animal welfare, environmental concerns, and so much more in the form of guest speakers who are experts in their fields. This series is recorded and will be shown in your area at your local public service cable network. Please contact them for dates and times.
If you have a group that you think would be interested in what we have to offer, we are available to come to your group and teach. We will give you a contact information at the end of the show. Please visit Rosemary's website and click on My TV Show, where you'll find a wealth of information about it. Our shows are also now available for you to watch free on YouTube. Just go to YouTube and type in Healing Outside the Box, and you can make your choices. There's how many shows listed there? Quite a few.
Yeah.
We are constantly adding new shows as well, so keep checking back. We're also on Facebook under Healing Outside the Box. You can go there and like our page and find out about all the shows that are going on and all the latest information. And we hope you enjoy the show.
Okay, before I introduce tonight's guests, I'm going to put up the control room is going to put up a flyer about an Operation Animal Freedom Fair that's coming up in September. Okay, there it is, Operation Animal Freedom, and Gina and Val Quiroga are sponsoring this with the help of many people. So, Rescue K911 is looking into conducting a huge 2-day adoption event at the North Haven Fairgrounds on Friday and on Saturday and Sunday, September 24th and 25th.
23rd and 24th.
What did that say?
23rd and 24th.
Oh, okay. They have already gotten approval from the Fair Association, have the support of North Haven's first selectman, Michael Frieda, who is also the co-chairman of Connecticut's Humane Treatment of Animals Task Force. They are looking to work together in this event to try and provide homes for as many animals as possible while promoting any businesses or organizations that caters to animals, such as rescues, grooming salons, pet supply stores, pet bakeries, and so forth. Can you put that flyer back up so they can be reading that? Okay, thank you. And they are also looking for entertainment. Bands, small bands, one-piece entertainer, whatever. And they're also looking for vendors to provide vegan or vegetarian cuisine only. Skincare and hair products that are 100% cruelty-free. Basically, if you go above and beyond to keep animals out of your products and food, then this is the event for you. Please contact them for more information. The number's not there. Okay, for Gina, it's 860-510-8640. For Val, it's 203-464-8992. I hope you will attend. Thank you. Okay, tonight is our 194th show, and the title is The Emotional and Spiritual Components of Health and Disease. And our guest tonight is the wonderful, wonderful Dr. Aviva Wertkin, naturopathic doctor. Welcome.
Thank
Welcome.
you.
So good to have you back. Oh, so good.
Good to be back.
She's been on our show a couple of times. Most interesting. The last one that we really loved was her show on cholesterol. Don't miss that. It's on YouTube. It'll tell you everything you need to know about cholesterol. Okay, let me tell you a little bit about Aviva. She graduated from Southwest College of Naturopathic Medicine in 2007 and completed a 2-year residency in natural family medicine. She then joined a busy family practice in Hamden until 2014 when she moved to Brattleboro, Vermont, and opened her own naturopathic primary care practice. In addition to being a primary care provider, she specializes in chronic fatigue, chronic pain, digestive and immune conditions, as well as various mental health concerns such as depression and anxiety. She has become an expert in disease reversal. She was voted the best physician in the greater Brattleboro region in both 2016 and 2017.
Wow.
And yes, folks, she drove all the way down here tonight from Brattleboro, Vermont to be on the show.
Thank you.
And we have many people from this area who go and visit her up in Vermont, and she treats them. So she's very popular, very sweet, very nice, as you will see on the show tonight. Okay, the first question we're going to ask you, as we ask all our guests, is what made you become a naturopathic? What made you get interested in this?
That is a great question.
Okay. Do I have 2 hours?
Yeah. Well, it actually, the answer to that also ties into the topic that we're going to talk about tonight. My interest in becoming a naturopathic physician was somewhat selfish, but somewhat not selfish. It started because of my own illnesses when I was younger. I had a number of health issues, and I would go to various doctors and specialists, and I wasn't getting answers. They were giving me prescriptions. Nobody could explain why things were happening. You weren't really even allowed to ask questions, but I just kept getting progressively worse. After a couple of years, my mom took me to a holistic chiropractor who sat down and talked to me for about an hour and did some alternative testing, and she changed my diet, and I started getting better. And that experience really opened my eyes to a whole other system of medicine.
Wow.
At the same time, and what relates to this talk, and part of why I'm so overjoyed to be here and talk about this, is around that same time, I happened to be watching TV when Bill Moyers was interviewing Candace Pert about her book called The Molecules of Emotion. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that book,
No.
but she was a science researcher. She was a neuropharmacist and researcher. She discovered the molecules of emotion, the actual peptides that could explain the science of the mind-body connection. And it was the first time I'd ever heard somebody talk about how our thoughts and how our emotions could impact our physical body. And not just in theory, she had the science to back it up. And that sparked this whole interest for me in the field of neuroendocrine immunology, of how all these systems work together. And it was part of my own healing journey to evaluate what was happening for me emotionally and spiritually that was influencing my health. So all of these things came together at the same time.
Wow.
And I just knew I wanted to be the kind of physician that I had been looking for, so other people didn't have to wait so long and suffer as long. That's what began that whole journey. And I have to say, since then, being a naturopathic physician has surpassed all of my expectations.
Oh, that's great. I always say
love it.
illness is a wake-up call. So when people get ill out there, they need to get into the reasons why and see what happens. You were led to this. If you hadn't had that, you wouldn't have been so led to this. So everything happens for a reason, right?
I couldn't agree more.
What was the author's name of that book?
Candace Pert.
Candace Pert.
Yep.
All right.
So yeah,
I'll
if you
write
want
that
a
down.
really good book recommendation to really understand the foundation or the science on the mind-body connection, she was an extraordinary pioneer in the field. It's an easy read.
What's the name of it again? So we'll say
The Molecules of Emotion.
The Molecules of Emotion.
That's our book suggestion
Okay.
on the show.
So the first question, can our emotions impact how we feel physically?
Let me think.
Well,
Hugely.
Hugely. Yeah.
Yes. So, we were
Okay.
just sort of mentioning that there is the science behind it. But even the longer I'm in practice, the more I see that we cannot separate. And as a clinician, we're trained to focus on the physical, right? I mean, people come
Right,
in
exactly.
with physical problems, and you need to know how to treat them. You need to know how to treat sinus infections and strep throat. You need to know how to treat irritable bowel and diabetes, heart disease. I guess it depends what area of medicine you're in. And I realize it's much easier for people to come in to say, my body hurts, or I have trouble with digestion. They don't know how to come in to say, I feel like nobody loves me. I feel really alone. But the more you talk to somebody and find out what's happening in their life currently or what's been happening in their life previously, you start to see how much our thoughts and emotions, or for them, how much it's affecting their physical health. And sometimes it's so simple. Sometimes I have a patient with high blood pressure who will say, I know it's my job. It's really stressful, but I need you to give me something for my blood pressure. And I'll give them something to help their body handle the stress until they're ready to leave that job. And then they don't need it anymore. It's not like they have a manifestation of that stress, right, on a day-to-day. As soon as they leave that job, no more hypertension, right? It can be that easy. And that's just a really basic example, but it's part of what I do every single day with every single patient at this point. And not everybody's wants to go there. Not everybody wants to have that conversation. There are people who come in and say, well, you know, that's not why I'm here. I just want you to give me a pill for something.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we are, a pill-taking society.
Well, it's much easier.
Give me a pill and I don't want to change anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Right? And you can't blame people. I mean, we like convenience, we like ease. We're creatures of habit and creatures of comfort. So usually things have to get bad enough for people to be willing. Although I think there is a growing trend where people are wanting to know how to address it or deal with it. They just don't know how. There aren't role models, there aren't skills. And so people might even be aware that their emotions are affecting their health, but they don't even know what to do with it.
I know. That's true. It's hard to make people understand that, how that works. I don't know how you do it. It's very hard to make people understand that that can impact that largely on their lives like that, you know? And it goes hand in hand. But we've been programmed by medical doctors, too. Come in, this is my problem, I'll give you a pill for the symptom, but we won't address the problem, why it's happening. So you just get a pill. And then they walk out, okay, well, I don't have to worry about it, I just take a pill, right?
Right. I mean, sometimes it's hard enough just to get someone to change their diet and understand that what they're eating every day impacts how they feel.
Exactly.
And I realize, though, sometimes people come in and they're in so much pain, they're so exhausted, they don't have the wherewithal to even deal with what's happening on a deeper level. So sometimes what I do is just, let's start with what's manifested on the physical level for you. Let's get you feeling a little bit better, and then they're more able to deal with it. Or then, even on their own, they start making changes, because we also get used to not feeling good, right? And we adapt to that, and we navigate our lives from physically not feeling well. And when that changes, I mean, just for some people, so many people don't get good sleep at night. They don't get enough sleep at night.
That's true.
And then that affects your brain, how your brain functions, your memory, your mood, all these things. When that changes for people, when they're able to start sleeping through the night, they're already a completely different person.
That's true.
In the morning, and how they spend their day and their mood and what they're going to do. Then they can start making other changes that influence how they're interacting with people. Then it's even easier to start, okay, well, let's dig a little bit deeper. And it's not like I'm a counselor or a therapist with my patients, but it's more allowing the opportunity to explore what might be part of creating the dysfunction or dis-ease in their body.
Exactly. Well, in that part, you have to be a little bit of a therapist like that. You really do. And say it right out. That's what you have to do. You're not just a pill pusher.
Right.
You want to help you address the problems. So to get them to sleep through the night and do you give them something to help them sleep, or how do you, I mean, you don't want to tell what how you treat people, but
yeah, generally, an idea would be, figuring out because each person doesn't sleep for a particular reason. So I'm not just giving a natural sleep aid. I'm trying to determine, what are they having trouble falling asleep, staying asleep on a physical level, what's happening. And that's where I might start. And then depending on the person, because some people, again, don't want to talk about what's happening. Other people are so relieved to have an opportunity to finally talk about it. So depending, I'll probably give them something to help them sleep. on a physical level, and then maybe also have a conversation about if someone's open to or they enjoy meditation at night or yoga at night. We talk a lot about sleep hygiene and just calming the nervous system at night. You know, and there's a lot of reasons people don't sleep. It could be hormone imbalances, cortisol, but I mean, we could have a whole thing on insomnia.
Physical,
Physical problems, but a lot of people also say, I can't turn my mind off.
That's
You know,
the
I've
one
got
I hear.
that chitch in my head or the thing that's, you know, and it's usually because at night is when our lives stop and things get quiet. And it's the background noise that suddenly comes to the surface. And that's the thing that most people want to ignore because it's uncomfortable and it causes anxiety. And then you can't sleep.
Edgar Tolle called it the pain body. The pain body. And that could be physical or mental. And that's what happens. That is exactly what happens. I've had people, and it's happened to me too, fall asleep. My neighbor just said this the other day. He says he falls asleep 11 o'clock, wakes up 20 minutes later, felt like he slept the whole night through and can't get back to sleep. And I've heard this from several people. And that's one way. You out there, I'm sure a lot of you had that problem. Or you fall asleep 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I find if you start to think, it's all over.
Right.
Don't
That's it.
think. So that's when, like you said, meditation comes in handy. Yoga and things like that, yeah. Tai Chi.
Maybe
things like
being
that.
busier during the day. I mean, a lot of people who have trouble sleeping, I've found in my job, a lot of the older people who have trouble sleeping is because they don't have a job, they're not working, they're home a lot. They nap during the day and then they don't have good sleep patterns
Right,
at
kind
night.
of throws off. Yeah, and so, you know, it's one of the beauties of naturopathic medicine is that we individualize it. So you're sort of looking at what is it for this person, because it might be different for this person and this person and this person, and there can be overlap, you know. But I think the idea for people is understanding that there isn't a separation. It isn't all just a physical problem. It isn't all just a mental problem. It goes hand in hand, and it goes in both directions.
Right.
Right? And so it's
Exactly.
really the way I see people get past things or cured of things is when they're willing to address the whole picture.
Do you find more people will talk about it or less people will talk about it?
I think,
Half and half,
you
or-
know, that I tend to attract a certain clientele, for the most part, who want the type of physician who will go there with them,
Oh, that's good.
which is nice, you know, or you help one person that way and then they refer all their friends who are also looking for someone who will
Yeah, that's
go
true.
there with them. So I think, you know, there's always going to be people who don't, and then at some point we realize I'm probably not the best fit for them. If somebody wants a drug or a natural supplement just to suppress their symptoms, there can be a time and a place for that, but sometimes people will say, that's all I want. And I'm like, you know what, I've got a bunch of other physicians in town I can refer you to,
Yes.
because they love to do that. And I really, my passion is helping people in a different way.
You're right. You're exactly right.
So I don't mind sharing and referring out when I'm not the right fit for what
You're
someone's looking
exactly
for.
right. That's what happens. You know, when I was having the problem with the arthritis, the hip implant that I had, they wanted to give me pills for the pain, and I said no. I take. At that time I was taking aspirin, and you told me about
I think it
Advil.
was Motrin.
Who?
Motrin?
No, I never took Motrin. And you started me on Advil. I didn't want it. My first thought was, what if I get addicted to it? I've seen so many people get addicted to it that you can't stop it after a while. So that was my worry, and I think that everyone should worry about that. Why do you want to just take a pill and go home? Start thinking about, what if I get
Because
addicted?
that's easiest.
Yeah.
That's what gets you back to work quicker. That's what.
Well, that's what they do, but they don't stop to think that can't go on forever.
Right. Yeah, that becomes the Band-Aid approach.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I just had somebody recently who came in who was hobbled in with severe foot pain. And they had called the office and said, you know, I'm having the severe, sudden, swollen foot pain. And I looked at my schedule. It's completely full. And I said, do you want to go to the urgent care center? And they said, no, I need to come in. So I tacked them on at the end of my day, you know, and he hobbles in, and I examine him, and I'm thinking it's got to be one of two issues. So I ask him to get some blood work so I can distinguish between the two problems. And he said, well, what can I take for pain? Because I'm in pain right now. And I said, well, you know, I can recommend something short term, but once we know what the problem is, you'll be out of pain. And I said, if you had gone to urgent care, they would have given you pain meds. And he said, well, that's exactly why I came to you. I don't want pain meds, but I need something overnight. So I gave him a treatment plan to do overnight that reduced the pain without having to give him any prescription pain meds. I got the results back the next day, and he had a really bad case of gout.
Gout, I was going to
Really
say.
severe.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, so I could
That's
change
an
the
acidic
diet.
environment or something? Yeah.
And I could give him a homeopathic preparation so he could be out of pain pretty quickly. But I also happen to know the patient well enough to know that they're also, as it comes up a lot, they're not happy with their job. And they don't know, he doesn't know what direction he wants to go in with his life. And he has ideas, but then he's scared. So we can have a quick conversation about, you know, what your foot might represent as a metaphor for what's happening. You know you want to move in a different direction, but you're feeling really scared. You're holding yourself back. So maybe just think of this as an opportunity to explore a little bit about the choices you want to make in your life. You know, just so it's not like he's anxious or depressed or anything that he's coming in talking about what's happening on an emotional level, but just sort of connecting. You know, you might not realize that your body's also trying to tell you something.
That's right.
Do you get a good rapport with most of your patients, if not all, when you try to connect their illness with something else going on in their lives, or do you get a lot, you know, half and half? Like some people say, yeah, it's not that, it's just an injury or something like that.
Right. There's going to be those types,
Yeah.
but I can usually tell before I say something.
Because
You know,
I would think that someone who came to a naturopathic physician is already headed in a good direction because they're thinking holistically as opposed to thinking, you know,
Right.
Conventional medicine.
And some people come in who have had no experience with naturopathic physicians. They don't even care anything about it except that conventional medicine has failed them. The medications aren't working or the side effects are unbearable, so they're desperate enough to try another way, but they're not necessarily open. And so chances are I'm probably not going to bring up too much of what might be happening on an emotional level. Maybe just planting a seed, you know, and saying like, well, I heard you mention this. That might be something we want to come back to at some point that's probably influencing how you feel. But I'm going to focus in on whatever is the physical problem they brought themselves in with and how I can help them with that. And I love to build a relationship with my patients and feel like we're working as a team and building that rapport so we can have the trust and have the communication and then eventually having an open and honest conversation. I did have a patient one time who said, "You're exactly right about what's happening emotionally, but I don't want to deal with it." Okay.
Well, how does an illness go away if they don't want to deal with it?
It's probably not going to.
No. I know.
It's probably not going to.
Yep.
And
So-
that's okay because you can't force it, right?
Yeah.
You can never force these things. Somebody has to be ready and willing to go there.
So how does spirituality have a role in medicine then? How would...
Well, I think there's sort of a twofold when we talk about the spiritual side, and I love having the opportunity to talk about this because it's even more ignored in medicine than the emotional piece. It's completely separate. It's not talked about. And so I think that on the spiritual side, there's the whole religious belief aspect and prayer, and we can talk about that. And then there is what I think of as more on the soul level. And it's a little bit deeper than an emotional because we know emotionally when we feel anxious or we feel sad. On our emotions on a day-to-day. Did we have a good day? Did we have a bad day? But on a soul level, there's something happening that's dictating how we feel that's a little bit more subconscious, not something that we're even giving conscious thought to maybe in those times in the middle of the night when we can't sleep.
Right.
Those negative thoughts that we tend to think about ourselves that are in the background, that's where I think the spiritual healing happens for people. So let's say somebody's come in to see me. I see this a lot, let's say with digestive issues and irritable bowel syndrome. And I know as a physician what I want to do to address that on a physical level. And then we know, okay, there's probably some anxiety or something going on, but what's happened to lead them there? And oftentimes there's a component, something that's happened earlier on in life, let's say, that's made them feel like they need to control things, that they don't have, if they're not controlling everything in their life, then they don't have control, and that would just mean chaos for themselves. Or not feeling accepted for who they are. You know, it's sort of a more fundamental core belief system that's navigating, that's somewhat dictating your thoughts and emotions. Does that make sense?
Yes. Oh, definitely.
So it's more of a deeper soul pattern that I see. Or when you've probably talked to people who say, this always happens to me, right? This kind of thing. And it usually, something happened, which was real, and then they have the thought of, this bad thing happened to me, and then they keep thinking it, and they keep attracting that pattern. And until they heal that root cause of that pattern, they'll keep perpetuating it. And then it becomes their story. And everybody has their story or their stories of those things. And it comes back to that same thing where our society doesn't tell people it's okay to deal with it. People don't have the skills to learn how to heal it.
Right.
But when you do, when you have the courage to heal those wounds, extraordinary things happen. And that's one of the most rewarding parts of my job, when people are willing to go there. And it's so scary, it's so uncomfortable, it's why people don't want to go there.
Yeah, it is.
You know, and then again, you can't force it.
I know, dealing with your emotions is... You know, do you remember that book by Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Life? You were talking about different parts of the body that are affected. And that's absolutely true. Spiritually, like the throat, people always have problems with the throat. It's either what, suppressing something you want to say.
Or not feeling heard.
Yeah. Or impatience, you know, not, because that's where patience is, not in your consciousness centers with everything. And that causes a problem there. So I'm sure you deal with all that. You know that if they tell you this is where it is, you know what
Yeah, you can
to
know.
address.
Yeah, it kind of clues me in on what might be, because sometimes people know and sometimes they don't, right?
I know, and making them understand that is a hard. You're right. It's a very hard thing.
It's very hard. And I just had a patient recently who was having some pretty severe issues, and she said, "Well, I really believe in Louise Hayes, so I'm going to treat this emotionally." And I said, "That's great. You have my full support, but we also have to treat this physically." And she said, no, I'm just going to treat it emotionally. And she started doing her affirmations and doing all these things, but she didn't get better. And then she blamed herself. And that's one of the things when people start thinking about the emotional or spiritual side, they go, well, then it's all my fault. I've created it. But that's not really what it's about. It's really understanding that it's the collective, that it has a very real physical manifestation that has to be addressed, but also an emotional component and a spirit component. And it's when people really address all of those that they can be really healed. If
That's
that
true.
makes...
Do you find some people will come in and with an illness and they'll blame themselves? They think that they're a bad person and they're being punished and all that. Do you get that?
I do. Yeah, and that's a really difficult obstacle for me because I can't make them unlearn that belief.
I know. The religion teaches people that.
Yeah, a lot of people believe, and not consciously even, some consciously, some otherwise, believe they're supposed to suffer.
Yes. Oh, yes. I've run into people like that. The more I suffer, the quicker I'm going to get to heaven.
Yeah, and then it's really hard for me to help them when they're attached to the suffering.
I know.
I have a lot of patients who, like we were talking, they wear their illness like a badge. They they own it. Like we were talking about that one time. Like I have diabetes and I have this and I have that. And
my cancer, my diabetes, my whatever.
They want it for something to talk about, and it's
There's usually a benefit to it for them.
Yeah.
And then you can't take that away. You know, and then they're usually not an ideal candidate to be one of my patients.
No, because they use that to get the sympathy, to get the attention and everything. Yeah.
Have you ever had to turn anyone away because they won't put the two and two together, like the spirituality and understanding? I mean, naturopathic medicine is all about understanding yourself as well. Have you ever had to say, listen, I can't treat you?
I
Because
don't
it's not-
think exactly in those terms, you know, but when I've had people where I know they're attached to the suffering,
they're attached to the suffering.
they're attached to the suffering, then I know they're not, then I'm not going to be able to help them, then I'll tell them. And I did have one patient who was very upset with me, and they said, I have money and I'm willing to pay. And I said, but you're not willing to get better, and I'm not willing to watch you suffer.
You should write a book. You really should. You should write a book because I really think that people don't understand that, you know, there's such a deep connection, you know, of it.
It's true.
you know.
And something really interesting, too, that I have found, and I didn't make this up, but it's something I've been able to apply with patients, is sometimes there's a subconscious belief that there's a benefit to being sick in the sense that, let's say their partner is used to taking care of them, and they're afraid if they get better, it will sabotage the relationship. So they've kept themselves sick.
Wow.
And then you have to deal with that. And that's a
That's
conversation
heavy.
you have to have with both of them so that it feels safe for them to get better.
Wow.
You know, and that's not even something our people are consciously aware of, right? So that's part of that deeper soul pattern or component or spiritual component that I think can happen for people.
You know, you just made me think about all the people in the world who just go to regular doctors and never know about any of this and take so many pills for symptoms mostly. And it's sad. It's really, really sad. How can they ever get better?
Right. You know, and I actually have some close friends that are a bit older than I am, and the husband came in to see me for a number of things, and we worked on diet, and we started tapering him off his medications because he no longer needed them. He was doing great. And then he said, "This is hard. I just want to eat whatever I want to eat whenever I want to eat it. I don't want to have to think about it. I don't want to have to worry about it." I said, "Well, then do that." And slowly but surely, those conditions came back.
Oh.
He went back on the medications, and he asked me if I was mad at him about it. And I said, "No, this is your choice.
This is your life.
Yeah, this is your life. You get to choose. If you want that route, many people do. They say, I don't want to take responsibility. I don't want to do the work."
There you
Then you have that other whole field of medicine to help. But there's other people who say, I wish somebody would tell me what should I eat? How should I eat? What's right for my body so I can feel my best? What nutrients am I missing? What's happening, you know, that's affecting how I feel? And I think that is growing, that trend is growing. And
Yeah, people are waking up slowly but surely, yeah.
Do you find it difficult to bring a patient into understanding the spiritual side of medicine when they come in and they really don't have any kind of an idea of it, or if they're not enlightened, or they don't feel spiritual, or they don't even weren't brought up that way, just don't know it in their lives?
Yeah,
It
so
might be difficult,
sometimes I just start the conversation to ask people, are they religious? Are they spiritual? I find out what their beliefs are, because somebody who doesn't believe in any kind of God or creator is going to be a very different conversation than someone who has a strong faith in some capacity. You know, and I love to go there because for some people, religion and spirituality is a huge part of their life. And then that's part of what gives them hope that they're going to get better. You know, they believe in the power of prayer, which has also been substantially researched to show the benefits medically when people pray. And I love that. And that gives, even that, when people can have hope, when people can have a faith that there's something higher than them, something greater, and it's part of a plan and there's a purpose, that also influences how they feel. There's quite a difference if you have two people sitting next to each other and one of them has hope and one of them doesn't.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
Or for some people, their religion is also their community and their support network. You know, and so there's a lot of different components to it. And so again, there's that individualized, starting that conversation of what somebody believes, and then maybe going from there. And I've even worked with certain ministers and priests who have a very strong faith until something really bad happens, until they experience a real tragedy. And then they start to lose their faith. And then they lose their faith, it's like their whole identity is gone. You know, and then their physical body crashes. So you have to repair the physical crash, plus bring them back to that connection that was severed.
Well, it's not like just being a doctor. It's like being a little bit of everything.
A little
Right?
bit of everything.
Yeah.
But
I know.
you know,
Wow.
but I love that, you know, and I
Wow.
love the opportunity to pray with patients when we can, because we know that right in that moment we can affect change in their life.
Do you get many different types of religion or religious beliefs? And
Yeah, I think, yeah. It's one of those things that it's religion and spirituality is such a big part of our culture, but it's also one of the most personal aspects of our lives. So I would say there's a whole variety. Even if, probably the majority in my community, there's a lot of Christian faith, there's a lot of spirituality, paganism, Buddhism.
Do you have any Muslim faith people that come to you?
Not actually as many as I would expect.
No?
But I guess it's not incredibly diverse in Vermont.
Oh, no? Oh.
Oh, yeah,
Not as much
that would
as
be true, yeah.
in cities.
That'd be true, yeah.
I know they pray a lot. That's why I was wondering, because they have their whole hour of prayer and their thing like that. So I wondered if they followed that same thought pattern.
Which I think it really makes a difference when people have something they believe in and something they can pray for, pray towards. And for some patients, just to get them started on an emotional or spirit level is having them do a simple exercise of gratitude and prayer before bed. You could also do before bread.
For bread.
You can say grace
Bread.
and hover.
There's nothing like praying for a good bread.
Yep, everyone loves real bread.
What was I going to say? When we started laughing, I lost it. We had a man on the show who cured himself from stage 4 cancer naturally. Never did chemo, never did radiation. He had stage 4 bone cancer. Okay, and he did a lot of different things, and he'll tell anyone how to do it and what it's about. And he has gotten on YouTube over 7,000 people have watched the show. Okay, so we know how many people want to cure themselves. All right.
I thought it was colon cancer. It was bone cancer?
Bone cancer, yeah.
Oh.
Stage 4.
That's
What was it,
even more
colon
difficult.
cancer that went to his bones?
Yeah.
Okay.
Went to his
Oh,
bones.
okay.
And when some friends of mine, whenever they, I read on Facebook or I know someone who has that, I will send him the YouTube address for them to listen to him, to what he says and what he does. All right, so this one friend of mine whose girlfriend's husband had the same thing. And she told him about this. And the man read it and he was interested. And he went to the doctor and he showed his regular physical doctor about it. And the doctor said to him, "You wouldn't like the food." I mean, the epitome of ignorance to me is that statement.
But what would you like to live?
Yeah, there you go. Versus, suffering and pain from chemo, radiation, and probably death. And he just passed away 2 weeks ago.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
Sorry to
Oh,
hear
you
that.
didn't tell
And
me.
he was only in his, 50s. Okay? So that's the kind of things that people hear and see and believe and do, and it's a shame. It's
It
really a
is.
shame.
I think people are really discouraged from it.
And that's what you're up against when you try to talk to people, because this is the other side of the coin. And it's
Well, I also believe that, and knowing from going through depression when I was younger and stuff like that, I believe that some people have an emotional disconnect with faith, and they don't believe that I don't think they want to get better because depression or whatever takes a hold of them, and then the illness comes in, and I don't think they want to. They don't want to believe like you're fighting for your life. You and I would say, "Hey, you're fighting for your life," and they'll be like, "Well, there's better things than this."
Right. Well, I think you can get so depressed that it's hard to get out of it. And it's hard to believe that there really is a God when you feel that miserable.
Yeah, and for someone like me, I've finally learned that to give that over to God and not hold that on my shoulders. That, like you say, praying is healing. I think that praying to Him and asking Him for help and putting myself in His hands and thinking, I don't have to shoulder all this. I'm His child. He'll take the burden. I actually feel better. I feel better physically when I pray.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a perfect example.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think when people don't have a faith in something, there's a reason, and sometimes it's because they feel let down by their religion, or maybe they were raised a certain way and then it doesn't quite resonate with them, or they feel like there are parts of it that were lies. Whatever it is, there's sort of a betrayal with the religion. other people have gone through certain traumatic experiences where then they think, how could I go through this if there really is a God?
Right.
Right? And so I find such a value in people's willingness eventually to get there. But oftentimes, there's layers of things that have to heal to get back to it. So I think it's wonderful that you found that way to get there, and you can feel the physical difference when you know you're handing it over.
Well, my husband said something fun to me one day, and he said, I said, I had a cough for a year, and I ended up going to see Dr. Sensenig, and he helped me to get rid of it. I went to a regular doctor and never, they put me on antibiotic after antibiotic, didn't know what was wrong, and he figured it out like that. But it was like my husband said, you thinking you could do this on your own, because after a while I didn't go see anybody, and then I finally went to him. But in the middle, he said, you think you can do this on your own? That's like saying you're more powerful than God. He's like, you're taking the burden all on yourself.
Right.
And you
That's
think
good.
you're more powerful than God because you think you can handle this on your own. And I'm like, well, I'm going to go see Dr. Sensenig then. And I was shocked to hear that come out of my husband. 'Cause
Yeah, that's
he's not
great.
particularly religious, but he does have a lot of faith.
Or spiritual.
Or spiritual.
There's such a difference
He's-
between religion and spirituality.
Yeah, he's very spiritual, but he's not very religious.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how to explain that.
I know
but-
what you say. He doesn't come out with things like that as what you probably want to say. He doesn't talk much about
No.
spirituality.
But that was like, well, all right then. I'm going to go a different path.
And to answer your question before, too, there are some people that, I had a young man come in with a lot of chronic digestive issues, pretty severe. And as he talked to me about things, he mentioned a history of an eating disorder, different things that kind of clued me in that there's probably an emotional component for him. And I brought it up, and he said, you're probably right, but I don't want to deal with it. And I said, okay, at some point, I think you'll find it really helpful if you're willing to go there. And I didn't see him for a while, and I thought, well, I probably offended him, I scared him off.
Or it's too painful
Yeah,
for him.
something. And then he came back about a year later, and he said, well, I didn't come back because I've been traveling. And what you said really impacted me, and I ended up traveling, going to South America and meeting with shamans and doing all this healing.
It
and
gives
you
me
were,
goosebumps.
so you were absolutely right. There was all of this stuff happening that I hadn't dealt with. And now that I have in the past year, I feel so much better, and I feel like my body's really ready to heal. So now I'm back. What do we need to do?
That's terrific.
Wow.
It's amazing.
That
That's
is-
fantastic,
That's
yeah.
wonderful.
And I love that. And not everybody's that obvious, but sometimes it is just planting the seed of just bringing it up, just saying to somebody, and this also recently happened as another example, a young woman who was having a lot of recurring gynecological issues, and just she'd get better and things would come back and get better and come back. And I finally said to her, is it possible that there was something that happened, maybe in the last couple of years, maybe when you were younger, anything traumatic, just
Traumatic, yeah.
opening up the conversation. And she said, yes, there were several things. And I've often wondered if that could have an impact on my body, but no one's ever told me. No one's ever brought it up. And I asked her if she'd done anything to help heal that on any kind of level, and she said, I don't even know where I'd begin.
Where to begin?
And then what an honor for me to be in that space to help somebody understand that what they went through can really be impacting their physical body and that it can be healed. And we could then sit there, instead of me saying, here, take this medicine again, let's talk about what's going to work for you to heal that, because it's a really real wound. And until that's healed, the problem's just going to keep happening. It's not just a physical problem. So she's just beginning that journey, but she heard me. Other people might deny it and say, no, nothing happened, because they're not even ready to admit it to themselves.
It's too
right?
painful.
I mean, we suppress things so much. It's actually exhausting and hard to suppress things, but it's a really easy, immediate go-to. It's too painful, I'm not going to deal with it.
I think people would rather suffer physical pain than emotional pain.
I
Yeah.
do too.
I think that's the bottom line.
Yeah, it's easier to handle the physical
Yeah,
pain.
it really is.
And that's why I think we have so much addiction, drug use, alcohol, pain meds, anything to not feel the emotional pain.
Not deal with those emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember doing healing on a girl once, and as I go down her body and got to her lower part of her body, I felt a very sense of dread, something that was going prickly. It was all kinds of things, and I hated to ask her, but I said to her, "Have you ever been abused at all?" And with tears in her eyes, and she said, "Yeah, she was raped as a child." And we started the healing after that, and she got better and stuff. But it's that's why I say spiritual healing, natural healing, I think they go hand in hand. And you are so great that you can do both, too. Plus, you have in your office a variety of people who can help on that same level. I mean, I don't know, you believe in reincarnation and karma and things like that? You do, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so I don't see how any person or this whole world can heal without spirituality, without a belief in a higher power of whatever they want it to be. It's all the same thing anyway. How can you do it on your own? I don't want to do it on my own. I say, listen, I'm going to turn this over to my godfather. He's going to be up all night anyway. Why do I have to, So, and I think, well, everything happens for a reason. Nothing in life is a coincidence. So, he has everything under control. Mm-hmm. What I'm supposed to work, what I'm supposed to do. Why am I going to worry about this? Nothing is going to happen to me that will not be for my personal growth and turn me into a better person at the end. So why am I worried? But sometimes I worry. I'm there sometimes. But for the most part, right? How can we solve anything?
Right.
Our health, our emotions, the world, our family, without spirituality.
I agree. And sometimes I say to patients, who do you think's doing the healing anyway? Right?
Exactly.
It's not me.
Exactly.
That's true.
Exactly.
That's true. I didn't think of that.
If you heal, and I know as a healer, if I personally want to heal you and I want to make this better because I think this and this, when I do that with people, I'm going to get exhausted because you know what I'm doing? I'm giving them from me. And pretty soon, I know a man who did that and got deathly sick and died. I say the same thing. This isn't coming from me. It's coming through me because I can focus it on you. Mm-hmm. But it all comes from God, And you being a healer like this and having this knowledge, this feeling, whatever you came into the world like this, is fantastic. That's why it's such an honor to have you on the show.
Oh, I love it.
I love you as a person and as a doctor. It's great.
Thank you.
It's just great. And I wish there were more people like you in this world. I really
Thank
do.
you so much.
I wish you didn't live so far away.
Yes. But I know there's some people here who come up to see you from Connecticut, and they just like a regular visits and everything.
Yes.
And that's wonderful to say about you. It really, really is.
Sweet.
I think we have about 10 minutes if we have that much left.
I was curious, like when you first start out in school, do you automatically go right into naturopathic medicine, or did you have to learn some conventional medicine first?
So in the medical school program, it's all the first 2 years are all the basic sciences.
Okay.
It's all the foundation, and then then
you pick your.
In addition to pharmacology and minor surgery, we start learning these other modalities. There was a mind-body medicine was definitely a part of our training. Mm-hmm. Religion, spirituality was never a part of our curriculum or conversation.
Right. Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think that emotional and spirituality is not involved in?
I'm not sure. I know that the emotional piece was somehow acceptable, but not the spiritual piece. Somehow you just can't go there. I don't know. It just was not.
It's the church and state thing. That's what it is. And face it, churches, religions, don't say religions, don't want people to know that it's that simple.
But I don't want to, I've worked with a lot of doctors being a paramedic for so long, and I don't want to come out and say, hey, this doctor doesn't care about your health because he doesn't care about your spirituality. I just don't think that there are some of them that know themselves, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we
There's
also
some that don't know it.
But I think they still really want to help you feel better and not keep you hooked on medicines. But I don't think they understand the level that.
I don't think they know how.
As intelligent as they are.
Yeah, and I don't think that means they're a bad doctor. I mean,
No,
most physicians,
no.
the training is based on addressing a physical component, right? And they can still be really good at it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean they don't care that they're not a good doctor.
No,
it's
right.
just a different way or a different kind of doctor.
And I've heard many times that they are really led and brainwashed by the pharmaceutical salespeople that come there and tell them all about it. And they don't really know the whole thing, the side effects. They don't know the whole thing about the medicines. This is what I've heard from I used to work in a doctor's office too, regular doctor. They were
Right.
great people, great people.
And I get
But
that.
that
I'm
happens, you know?
out there, I'm on the fringe already just by
Yeah.
utilizing natural medicine.
Oh, do
Right?
you have natural medicine reps come to you just like doctors have drug reps? Oh,
Sure,
you do?
yeah.
Oh. I would have
yeah.
thought that.
Yeah, yep, for sure. Then you add in the whole emotional, spiritual, or energetic conversation, and definitely I'm out there even more.
Wow.
But that's really, my passion is so much in helping people heal that I don't know how I could do it if I never opened that conversation with patients.
I know.
And it isn't something that I have to have even in their first appointment, but unless it's so obvious.
Right.
And then you really have to. And then I can't be attached to the outcome. It's really just saying, okay, here's...
How do you detach yourself you get involved with a lot of emotional people, and how do you detach yourself from that? Because I know as a paramedic, my detachment is leaving them at the hospital and walking away, but I still carry them with me, especially certain people who make an impression on you.
Sure. Well, I really care about all my patients,
Yeah,
and I'm invested in them getting better. I just have to practice the acceptance that they are where they're at, and they're making the choices based on what they think is best for them at that time. Even if I disagree. Which also reminds me of one of the biggest obstacles that I see for people on the emotional or spirit level is around resentment and forgiveness.
Yes, very much so.
And I think a lot of people have a misunderstanding of what forgiveness means. They think it means I'm condoning what happened.
Right.
You're right.
I had a
You're
huge
exactly
problem with that. I actually heard from, I watched I watched Joel Osteen one morning. I just happened to be flipping through the channels, and I was watching them, and I'm thinking, and I'm watching them, and I said to my husband, what do you think? And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, he said, you don't forgive somebody for them. You forgive them for you. Not for
Yes.
them. And that way, I got the goosebumps, and I'm like, it never resounded to me until that day. I was like, things are meant to be, and I was meant to hear it at that
there's
time.
messages everywhere, right? Messages everywhere from all kinds of things, from music, from radios, from talk shows, from animals, from anything. If you just keep your ears open, they're always trying to help us, right?
It's so true. They're always trying to help if we are willing to listen.
Yeah. We all have angels, guides, teachers, and animals around us. Every single person. And they're there to help us. And they're trying to get through. They can't get through.
One of the big differences, too, I think, when we talk about conventional medicine versus naturopathic is this idea you were already talking about. With naturopathic medicine, it's really about empowering people versus you just being the person. You don't make changes. You're not responsible for anything. You have this because it's bad luck. You have it because of genetics.
Yes.
And we're going to manage
or because
this.
you deserved it because you weren't, like you were saying that before. Some people believe they deserve their illness.
You deserve it. That sort of thing. Bruce Lipton wrote a great book called The Biology of Belief. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it.
Okay.
He talks a lot about epigenetics and how not only our thoughts, but our environment and how we perceive our environment, our reaction to our environment, influences our physical body and even our genes. It's really extraordinary. And so one of the things that I do is really the opposite as far as empowering people to take responsibility for themselves on the physical level and begin to on the emotional or the spirit level. And it goes in all directions. You can get well by starting at one end or the other end, but eventually they're going to meet because we are physical beings, emotional beings, and spirit beings.
Right.
Even if you don't want to believe it or recognize it, it still is.
It still
what
is,
it is,
whether you believe it or not. I heard somebody said something like that in a movie or show once. It's still there, whether you believe it or not. It's the truth. And someday you will believe it because it'll come hit you right in the face, and you'll know this lifetime, another lifetime, whatever. How long do you want to suffer?
Yeah.
Like I knew someone, my ex-husband used to say to me, it's only going to be one big hurt, and then it's over. You know, like when you get a needle, when the needle goes in, it hurts, and then it doesn't hurt anymore. The same thing with the emotional pain. Start dealing with it. It'll hurt a lot in the beginning, but then you'll get over that, and you walk out the other way into the light, and things will be better, right?
It's really, really true.
Just do it.
Yeah.
Just jump.
Jump.
You know, just take the plunge.
I try to be aware of how I perceive things, but sometimes I feel like I don't have enough of a background to perceive it in a better way, if that makes sense.
Well, but you can always find help.
But some people, I mean, with my spiritual background, I have a little more help, but for some people who don't, I wouldn't know how to advise them how to perceive something differently than how they're taking it in, if you know what I'm saying.
Right.
You mean a problem or an illness or what?
An illness, or even a problem, or how you're perceiving how, like you say, how you're perceiving how things are coming to you, whether you're taking it in a negative or a positive or that kind of thing. How do you... I try to help
think
them.
you can find a particular belief they have that's sabotaging. You know, I believe I
There you
can't
go.
be fixed, or
There you
I
go.
believe, and then you start to work on that and help them see that there's another way of perceiving it. And they might not get it right away, but again, you're planting that seed, you're giving them the option. Maybe if you look at it this way, see how that feels.
Oh, okay.
See what that's like. And then they might have to think about it for a while, because most of us don't make big changes overnight.
Yeah.
Remember
that's
when
true.
Christ talked in the Bible? A lot of people love the Bible, so there's a lot of good things in it, but most of it's not really right. And he said, drop the little seeds, like Johnny Appleseed. Drop seeds, and they're there. Whether they sprout or not depends on the person, but they're there. And that's what she just said to you is the same thing. Look, what about this? Why don't you think about this? Drop the little seeds. And that's all we can really do. Our ego makes us want to make it all better right away. And we can't do that,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
You can only put a Band-Aid on a cut. That you can make it better. But emotional takes time, patience, love, caring, right? Person like you. Yeah.
Well, you know, it's because I've been through that burning door. I've pushed
too.
myself through it several times, so I know what it's like personally. And then it just makes it even more gratifying when I can help other people through it to get to their other side.
You know, the thing about that is, I've heard people have said to me, and I'm sure they've said to you, well, how do you know your life is perfect because you know all that, you understand that, you don't have any problems, you know that, and then you tell them, wait a minute, you don't know what I've been through to get here, the pain, the suffering, the tears, the this, the searching, the screaming up to the heaven, why, right? And the people who go through that are the people who can really understand. You know, and another thing I like to tell people who are suffering in this life, having debilitating diseases that they try to fix but they can't seem to get rid of because it's karmic or something, I call them very brave. Very brave because they came on this planet to work that out and to learn it. And I say, don't feel like you're guilty. Don't feel like you're bad. You're brave. Right?
It's true.
You're very brave out there. All right, I am getting a signal that we have to say goodnight.
No.
It's so bad. So I want to give Dr. Wertkin her contact information. Okay. It's Dr. Aviva Wertkin. Her phone number is 802-251-7476 in Brattleboro, Vermont. Her email is DRAVIVA, which is Dr. Aviva at Nature, NATURAE medical.com. And her website is www.naturemedical.com. I hope you'll get in touch with her. It'll be well worth it. And our information is the same.
Same as always.
Yes, same as always. I don't know if we have enough time to say it all because I want to say goodnight to Dr. Wertkin, but 203-627-7966, and you can reach us on the website, Rosemary, www.rosemarylachance.com. And Dina, your email, right?
Yep. That's
So-
all there.
Yep. All right, so thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.
So much for coming
Thanks for
all the way
coming
down
all the
from
way
Vermont
down from
tonight.
Vermont. Yeah.
Oh,
She,
it's my
she worked all
pleasure.
day and she drove out here tonight. And we're convinced her to stay the night and
For
drive
you.
back tomorrow. Yeah,
It's
just
all
for
for
you,
you.
to help you.
Everything
right.
happens for you, not to you.
That's right. All right, so we're going to say good night. Good night,
Good night.
everyone.
See you real soon.
Take care.
As you look out